tonight via Zoom for the Community Visioning Forum at the City of Milton's for the City of Milton Strategic Plan. The strategic plan is our chance to think big about what the city's top goals, objectives, and strategies should be for the next several years. To make it successful, we need to hear from you, our Milton citizens. We want to know your vision for the City of Milton. We invite you to complete the brief strategic plan survey located on our city website. On the homepage, you'll see the survey link under the spotlight section. And please spread the word to all your neighbors and friends as well, Milton citizens. Before we begin tonight, I want to introduce and thank Michelle Kennedy. Michelle's with Barry Dunn, and that's the city's partner on this important project. So, Michelle, before I hand this meeting off to you, I'd like to thank all of you, all your associates, all our staff, and especially all our citizens that are involved. So, with that, I'll turn it over to you, Michelle.
Thank you, Mayor Lockwood. Good evening. I would like to introduce my colleague, Daryl Dixon from Barry Dunn. He's the senior consultant. He's co-facilitating this process with me, and Daryl is also a diversity, equity, and inclusion expert. So we've been really fortunate to have him on the team. And then our partners from the city who have supported us so well during this project and who we've really enjoyed working with. We have Steve Krokoff, your city manager. We have Stacy Inglis, the assistant city manager. We have Sarah Ladart, the economic development manager. And we have Greg Botello, who's the communications director for the city. So thank you all for helping us with this part of the project. So I'm going to provide just a quick overview of the forum. It's going to be fast-paced and interactive. We want to allow time for there to be discussion for the participants that we have here this evening. We want to let you know that the session is being recorded, and that's just a common practice for all public meetings that the city conducts. As the facilitators, Daryl and I will be leading this. We're going to present some information to you before we get your comments, and we'll start with a brief poll question, which gives you an opportunity to comment about some things that you might like about Milton. Then after we share the results of the poll, we'll give you a short slide presentation with some information that we gathered in doing an environmental scan as part of the strategic planning process. And Daryl will describe what that is. Coming out of that, we'll open it up to have a discussion about Milton's future and get your input. And then we'll take another poll to gauge how you're feeling about Milton's future after that discussion. And then finally, Steve Krokoff will close us out by letting us know what the next steps are to get from where we are now to the end of the strategic planning process. And so that you can see there up on the screen, those are the steps that we'll go through as part of the forum this evening. So I'm going to turn it over to Daryl, and Daryl's going to take us through the next couple of parts of our meeting this evening.
All right, thank you very much, Michelle. So we're going to actually begin with doing a poll. And we're going to ask you a question, and we want to know your opinion on this question. And Sarah's going to post it on the screen for you in just a moment. But we want to know, if you had to choose one word to describe Milton, which word best describes Milton in your opinion? So just pick one, and we'll keep this open for about 30 seconds to give everyone time. But pick the word that not perfectly describes Milton, but best describes Milton in your opinion. And yeah, I'll wait. Okay, waiting for responses. And everyone can vote, right? Okay. All right, so here we go. So the results are in. It says 67% rated peaceful as the #1 word, the best describes, and then 33% said welcoming. So thank you. Thank you very much. And now, just so you all know what I'm going to do with this, Your responses now have given the city more data to consider as it looks to plan for Milton's future. So you've already made a contribution tonight already. So let's look at some guidelines. If you go, let's go to the next slide. I want to talk about some guidelines because the city is going to be using the city's guidelines that are used for public meetings and how to participate. So I just want to go through those because we do want your participation, folks. It really makes this much more richer if we get your participation. So we're going to ask first that you speak from your own perspectives using I statements. We don't want to make statements that might generalize or overgeneralize for other people that are not here tonight. And we are asking that you respect other people's viewpoints while listening respectfully and intently. See, tonight, there isn't a wrong or right viewpoint. Today, it's all about your viewpoint. So just speak your truth. And then we're going to ask that you stay focused on the discussion at hand. We want to avoid side conversations and distractions. And then be sure to ask questions because it can make this process stronger and more effective. And there are no bad questions today, by the way, folks. There are no bad questions because if clarification is needed on something, then just simply ask. Because if it's not clear to you, it might not be clear to someone else. And that means we as facilitators need to make it clearer. So, it's not you, it's us. So please ask questions. And then we're asking that you be patient with one another as we talk. It might be more difficult to read nonverbal cues from behind the screen, and some people may need more time to process a thought. And while we want to be patient with others, we also want to ask that you be mindful of how much airtime you might be using to talk, because we just want to assure that everyone has enough time to share their thoughts tonight. And then during this presentation, if you would like to ask a question, you have two ways of letting us know. There's the raised hand feature as well as a chat feature. So I'm going to ask Sarah if she wouldn't mind just take a moment to do a demonstration on how you can participate tonight by raising your hand and asking questions in the chat box.
Thanks, Daryl. So for people unfamiliar with these Zoom features, at the bottom of your screen, there are a series of icons. If you click on the participant icon, this next box will pop up. And at the bottom, it says invite, mute me, and raise hand. So if you click that raise hand button, like Tammy and I practiced, it will show up with the blue hand. And at that point, I will be watching that. And if you raise your hand at the appropriate time, I will alert Michelle and Daryl to the fact that you have a question. Additionally, if you would like to ask a question or just type a question in the chat icon is right next to the participant icons, and I will be monitoring that as well.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So let's go to the next slide because this process begins with what we call an environmental scan. This is where we gather data from many sources to identify potential opportunities, challenges, and trends that can drive the city's focus and effectiveness. And as part of the scan, we analyze data and information from a wide range of sources. Plans, surveys, other sources. Actually, in all, there were about 25 different sources that we use in this environmental scan. And Milton wanted to be sure that there was representation from all of the diverse communities and voices in the city. So we conducted interviews with 55 Milton stakeholders, which represents the groups that you see on the slide. Diversity was very important in inclusion. So you can see on the screen, that's the diversity that we're bringing to this environmental scan. So on the next slide, now we're going to talk about the quality of life in Milton. Over the years, Milton has received a number of national awards and rankings. Now, the list you see here is just a sample of the ones that were recently acquired. They indicate all the ways in which Milton provides a high quality of life. Now, quality of life is a term that we often hear, and that might mean different things to different people. So for the sake of this work, the term quality of life represents the natural ambience, the services, and the amenities that make for an attractive community. And then another piece of data that aligns with what you see in this slide is from the International City County Management Association National Community Survey. And it showed that Milton ranks higher than the national benchmark for safety, the economy, and the built environment. And for clarity, the term built environment refers to human-made structures, features, and facilities viewed collectively as an environment in which people live and work. It's not a term we, lay people use a lot, the built environment, but basically it's just what you built in the city. Now, here's some community characteristics about Milton. In addition to rating the city as a place to live, Milton also received high ratings in other aspects of community quality, such as a place to raise children and to retire. Actually, 9 out of 10 residents were pleased with Milton as a place to raise children, and 7 out of 10 gave Milton high ratings as a place to retire. And both of these are above the national average. Now, in regards to the economy, the findings were particularly strong. More than 9 in 10 residents positively rated the overall economic health of the city, and about 6 in 10 or more were pleased with the vibrancy of the downtown commercial area, the overall quality of business and service establishments, shopping opportunities, employment opportunities, and Milton as a place to work, live, and play. And again, all of these were above the national average. Now, the next slide, you're going to notice Milton's population is expected to grow over the next 5 years. And another interesting fact is that the vast majority of Milton's residents are employed in white-collar jobs. And the U.S. Census defines white-collar jobs as management, business, financial services, professionals, like lawyers, doctors, et cetera. And the second highest is services, which includes things like working in salons and hotels. And finally, the blue-collar jobs, which include things like farming, construction, installation, production, transportation, et cetera. And according to the most recent data available, the average household income nationally is $97,973. So again, Milton ranks higher at $126,000 median household income. Now, one thing this slide doesn't show is the unemployment rate. Milton's rate has risen from 1.9% in 2018 to 3.9% currently. And that's not a surprise given the pandemic. But the good news is that it's still under the national rate, which is right now at about 6.9%. And then another thing to know about Milton as we do the scan is the diversity of the city in regards to race and ethnicity. As a city, Milton has a share of racial diversity. And as you can see, the racial diversity is made up of whites, Asians, Black, Hispanic, and persons that identify as biracial or polyracial. So just about 1/3 of Milton's population is of a race other than white. The largest percentage of other than white residents identifies as Asian, and of that, 9% identifies Indian. And based on census data projections, the diversity of Milton's population is expected to increase over the next few years, and the largest growth will be seen in persons that identify as Asian and bi or polyracial. And then one more on the age. Currently, young adults and middle-aged adults, those between the ages of 25 and 64, they make up 58% of the population, more than half. However, the population of Milton is projected to become older in the next several years. And the youngest group, those people that are 24 and below, they will decrease in proportion to the total population, while adults 25 to 44, they will gain 4% of the population. And these statistics are really important as you think about and plan for the future growth and development of your city. And then Michelle's going to give you a little bit more that we got from that scan.
Thank you, Daryl. So I want to talk a little bit about Milton city government. So our company specializes in working with local governments around the country. And as we work with local governments, we often engage in processes like this with residents in the community. And one thing that we've learned over time is that many times we find that residents don't really have a good understanding of where their tax dollars go and what those tax dollars pay for. And so we thought we'd present this information to you so that you could learn more about that if you don't know already. So everybody pays taxes, and the local taxes that you pay are distributed in this way. So 85% of those local taxes go to two entities besides Milton. The first one is about 1/3 of those dollars, and that's Fulton County. And you can see there the types of things that that those tax dollars pay for. And then over half goes to the Fulton County School District. Of course, Milton benefits from that. You have your public schools here that receive those dollars. And then finally, out of that total, 15% of your local taxes go to pay for Milton city government. And we'll go into detail on the next slide about what's included in that. So the largest portion of the expenditure is for public safety, and public safety includes both fire and police. The next largest chunk is general government, and general government is the part that maybe you don't see as readily, that it isn't kind of in front of you every day, but it's an important part of city expenditures because it really is the funding that has to do with the governance of the city. So it includes the city clerk, it includes the city's information technology and finance departments. It includes communications and community engagement, human resources, and probably, one of the most important is the city manager's office, because that office is responsible for implementing and carrying out the policies of the council. And it directs all city operations, and it oversees the enforcement and execution of city laws and ordinances. The next largest slice is public works, and these are things that you do see in the community. Public works is responsible for transportation planning and then in maintaining the city's public infrastructure, which are the things that you see on the ground: streets, sidewalks, traffic signs and signals, bridges, and storm drainage systems that are part of the public right-of-way. Then the purple chunk and the teal chunk in the chart are both 7%, and those represent the parks and recreation part of the city, as well as the community development part of the city. And parks and recreation includes athletics, it includes the city pool, it includes all the parks and facilities, arts and culture, Camp Joyful Souls for kids with disabilities. And then you may not know this, but senior services and programming are included in parks and recreation as well. Community development includes planning, land conservation and development, code enforcement, zoning, and economic development. So the orange slice is 5%, and that goes to service the city's debt. And then the final slice, which is 2%, funds the judicial system, which includes the municipal courts. So let's talk a little bit more about the quality of services of Milton city government. Again, in that same survey that Daryl mentioned earlier, the International City County Management Association National Citizen Survey found that almost 90% of the residents that took this survey said that the quality of city services were good or excellent. And again, fire and police ended up rating the highest within all of the city services. So this is a good metric that shows us that residents do believe that city government is doing a good job. The other thing that's part of this survey that doesn't show on this slide is that the city rates higher in many of the national benchmarks regarding city services. 9 out of 10 residents gave good marks to the overall quality of city services, as is shown there, but Milton also passed national benchmarks in several other areas of city government, which includes welcoming citizen involvement, confidence in city government, being honest and transparent, treating all residents fairly, and then in the whole area of customer service. So next, we're going to take a few moments and share with you what we heard from those 55 stakeholder interviews that we did, that Daryl mentioned earlier. These were interviews that we conducted with residents, community leaders, other stakeholders, representatives of community-based organizations. And these also include responses from a survey that we conducted with city employees. Now, we are adding to this data. There is a survey going on through the city's website right now that's asking a number of questions that it's actually gotten quite a bit of traffic. We've gotten quite a few responses to that survey. I think somewhere around the neighborhood of 150 or something like that. And then we also have what's called an idea wall available on the city's website that allows anybody to go in and contribute a single idea that they want to share about Milton's future. So what we're going to show you next in the next couple of slides is what we have so far. And then when we take the input from these forums and combine it with the survey data that's ongoing right now, we'll have an even more complete picture of Milton and how residents feel about their city and their city's future. So this is the list of the most pressing concerns and challenges that we identified during the interview process and as well as in the employee survey. Now, again, as I said, this list could change depending on the outcomes of the survey that's ongoing currently. And so we'll see how that plays out. But these were the ones that rose to the top. And what's interesting about this list is that several of the items on here also appeared on the top rated items of concern that were in the ICMA National Community Survey that Daryl and I have been telling you about throughout this presentation. So in that survey, the top two were also the top two bullets on this list: the tension between growth and development and managing what makes Milton special, its rural character and heritage, and then traffic congestion, which often goes along with growth, as you are probably well aware. Next slide. So this is a slide that we really wanted you to focus on because these are the opportunities that people identified for Milton's future. These aren't the only ones, but these were the ones that kept coming up over and over again in our interviews. And I want to take a minute and just talk about each one of these to share a little bit more information about them. So you might be aware that in 2016, 80% of voters in that election approved $25 million in bonds to acquire land for parks, trails, and green spaces for Milton. And this includes conservation land, wildlife habitat, trails, natural areas. These are places for passive use with no development. And the city has been using those bond funds to acquire property. And now residents are really eager to see those spaces opened up for use. So that's what that first one refers to. The second one really relates to the family-based nature of Milton. There are a lot of people living in this community that have children. There's a real hunger for more athletic programming, more parks to recreate in. But this also includes a desire for more programming for seniors and for people with special needs. So that all is kind of included in that particular thought in the second bullet there. The next one is an idea around being able to actually get more services without the whole cost being borne by the city of Milton. So collaborating with other the neighboring cities of, Alpharetta, for example, to see if we can provide more services to Milton without Milton having to bear the entire cost. Then Daryl showed you the demographic information earlier, and this goes straight to that demographic information, and that many of the people that we interviewed said it would be really great to see an increase in the diversity of Milton's leadership and the city staff that would be a little bit more reflective of the diversity that's in the community. There was also a theme about developing a more business-friendly culture. There's a sense that Milton is business-friendly, but it could be even more so. And that especially a desire to do some more investment in the Deerfield area. There's been a significant investment in Crabapple, and Deerfield is an area that would allow some development of business, and it's an area that's prime and ripe for that and has been identified for that. The other part about diversity is increasing the engagement of Milton residents to get more diverse voices to the table when decision-making processes are happening, when planning is happening. So that one is connected to the city's diversity as well. And then this second to last bullet really relates to the one up above about collaborating with neighboring cities to provide more services. Many of the people interviewed felt that the city could expand its partnerships with the existing community-based organizations, maybe even community-based organizations in the neighboring cities, again, to expand services. And this one was around mostly programming and services, not necessarily parks and recreation. And then finally, offering more events and festivals. People love Crabapple Fest. They love their community and they want to spend more time in it and having opportunities to interact with their neighbors and others in the community. So more events and festivals was a strong desire voiced by people who participated in the interviews. So those are the things that rose to the top, and it'll be interesting to see what you all think are the opportunities for Milton's future. So I'm going to stop there before we go into our focused question. Just going to ask our participants if they have any questions about the information that Daryl and I presented to you.
Michelle, I also didn't mention if any of our participants are joining by phone, to raise your hand is *9 and *6 is to unmute. Sorry about that.
Very helpful.
But I do not see any hands being raised right now.
Okay. Well, I want to make sure that we don't miss anybody. So I'm going to go ahead and get us launched here. So I'm not quite sure. I can't see from my screen exactly how many participants we have, Sarah. Do we have a large enough group for breakout discussions, or are we going to keep
Yes.
everybody together?
Nope, we're going to send them with Greg to a breakout room.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to describe what the next steps are for you. So this is the part where you get to share your thoughts about Milton's future. So the question that we are going to ask you to discuss in your small group is, think ahead 5 years from now. What are 3 to 5 things that you hope will be new, different, or better in Milton? That's the question you're going to discuss with your fellow Milton residents when we send you off to your breakout room. So I'm going to give you a little instructions about how to do this, so you'll all be comfortable. When you get to your breakout room, you will automatically be on mute. So we're going to ask you to unmute your microphone so everybody can hear each other. We would like, if you are on video, it would be nice to share your video with each other so you can see one another. That's always easier when you're interacting. Some of you might be joining by phone. That's okay too. The first thing we'd like you to do is select a scribe to record your IDs. And I think Greg might be able to be helpful in that role, but it's always better if one of the participants and not the facilitator from the city is the one that's sharing out from the group. So you can have one person share out, or because we've got a small group this evening, all of you can share if you choose. So just plan though to have your discussion knowing that we'll want you to share the ideas that you generate. And then if Greg stays, is Greg going to stay in the room with them? Yeah, okay, good, Greg. So Greg will watch the time. He'll help you to let you know when it's time to wrap up. And frankly, you can probably talk for as long as you like, because again, we have a small group here this evening. And then when you're finished, when you're all done and you feel like you've got your ideas down, we'll come back out and you'll share those with Daryl and me as the facilitators, and we'll have some discussion about it. And so we're going to send you to your breakout rooms now. And if Greg's going to stay with you, I don't think I need to give you any more instructions.
Hello. See, I think we have Alyssa, John, and Mary. You want to unmute? There we go.
Greetings.
I'm your friendly neighborhood communications director, so I have to communicate. I get to communicate. Let's see. I know Mary, and I might know Alyssa. I'm guessing her last name is not Milton. If it is, then that's fantastic.
Yes, my last name is Milton.
It is. Congratulations. It's good. You're in the right place then. So.
Yeah, I agree.
So this is the gist is that basically it's a little mini brainstorming session. So the idea that, and this is kind of optimistic, forward-looking type thing that was, so if you could pick 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever things that you would think that could change for the better over the next 5 years in Milton, what would they be? So anything jump to mind that you think could make the city even better place?
I think we have some really good codes and ordinances in place. And I know in particular, of course, I can only speak where I am all the time, which is really the Birmingham Crossroads area. that I think we could do a better job of enforcing some of the sign ordinances. I know in our public shopping center, we've been trying to work with community development for almost a year and trying to get not Publix, but the owner of the development to just adhere to the sign ordinances that are in place.
And that's probably like having consistent, clear, not branding, but you know what I mean? So it has a consistent look and feel.
Yes.
And we actually do have that. There is a Birmingham Crossroads overlay district branding code out there that the city worked really hard, developed a great overlay district, spent a lot of money with consultants to develop it, but yet it's not enforced.
So it's a matter of it's not a matter of writing it, it's a matter of enforcing what's already there.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
already there. We're not asking
Yeah.
for anything new. I think what we're saying is the city needs to look at what we already have in place, that the people spoke up previously and said, this is what we want, and they're not enforcing it. I think what we want is to keep Milton rural. That's what we always hear.
Yep.
We always hear to keep Milton. And we put in these overlay districts to do that. And we've hired code enforcement officers, and we're paying these code enforcement officers. I think what we need is for the city government to start doing their job and having these people enforce the codes that are on the book.
Yeah.
And that may be the case in other, besides Birmingham Crossroads, I'm not sure, but I'm sure it's probably a good practice no matter what.
Why? It's a citywide issue.
Yeah. And we just, focus a little more on where our little corner of Milton more than anything else. And I'm going to be quiet for a minute if someone else has something that
Sure.
they want to say.
Okay. Alyssa, or say John or Alyssa, you can flip a coin. Alyssa,
I can go first.
Sure.
So I don't know how exactly like the technical terms, but I would like to, I guess, more communication to be more clear about the development that's going on, because, one day I'll wake up and there'll be just like this new, I guess, development, and it would be good and to know where to go to look to see like what are each plans for the future for Milton, because I know, Milton's an up and coming area and it's growing very quickly. And I want to just keep track of, what's going to come up, what's to come. And so specifically, there is some sort of survey going on inside of the Milton High School Trail. And I don't know exactly what's going on. And I've been going through the internet, but I haven't been able to find out what is going on.
See, I theoretically know most everything, and I don't know that one. I do
Okay.
know that actually one, I think that is the first part of your thing is and you're talking about private developments, anything from all the buildings in Crabapple to this neighborhood of 5 houses that's going up, whatever, in central Milton or somewhere else. Like basically, it's probably especially private stuff,
Mhm.
not just like city stuff per se, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, because I think actually we're actually about to launch all the road stuff like that, but I think that is that's very helpful because I've been pushing for that. So if someone else says it, but I don't have that information, but we do have people who do have that.
Okay.
It's a matter, and you also have to get things from in granted, where things are in different times. So basically private development, some way of tracking that so people know what is happening in their community too, in terms of what growth is happening. So that's a matter of knowledge, I guess, is anything else.
Yes. Yeah.
So what I think we'll do is like basically everyone will go around one by one. So we can always go back. But John, you're next. Sorry, Alyssa, is anything else along those lines?
Oh, no, that's good. Yes.
Cool. Okay. So, John, what do you have to share?
Yeah, I guess I would mirror a lot of the feelings that we saw in the survey about trying to keep Milton rural, and I'm a little concerned about overdevelopment. I thought Alyssa's idea about having a site that kind of explains what's coming up and what's going on and what kind of buildings are going to be to put up super helpful, because I did realize there was one for like the traffic circles and all the road development work. I did refer to that website after bookmarking it. I'd keep an eye on it, and that was helpful. So if there was something like that,
Yeah, and I
development
think,
that
well, I
would-
think it's a little more challenging when it's not the city's not doing it, but I think it still affects the city. So, you know what I'm saying? So that's the,
Right.
like, sort of, yeah, but the.
City's aware of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been here for about a year and I'm keeping track of these things, but there's things that pop up, you know, especially the smaller things. I mean, especially when there's like the 4 or 5, you know, the big plot of land becomes 5 houses, something like that, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think that's a very good idea. Let's see. So I'll go back to the Kronks. So any second take for you all?
I think we absolutely agree with Alyssa and John. I think having some easier way to get information, and I know, I'm sure I'm just way out of step, but Facebook, for me to have to go to Facebook to try to find out what's going on in the city is a little difficult. I love it when you just do push notifications to your email address, and that way it just pops up in my email. And then I can, you know, read it quickly and discard it without having to go through the jump of going to.
Well, we're working on a text alert system too. Not an alert. It won't be an alert, but if you sign up for, if you want to say what the latest on, especially like, I don't know if you guys know about Design Review Board or things like that, when they can review certain developments, you can have say, if you want to learn the latest on this, you get a text saying there's new news on this, that sort of thing. So there's lots of ways we can kind of do that.
And I think that since you've been in your role, I've definitely noticed an increase in the communication and the clarity of the communication. And I really like how whenever there's going to be a council meeting, you kind of lay out what that meeting is about. So I don't have to go through 500 pages, not really 500.
Well, no, sometimes there are 500 pages. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a process, but this is all good feedback. And to some extent, frankly, for me, a lot of this stuff is giving impetus for the people who know that stuff firsthand to get it. So the idea of if citizens say that's priority, then the community development department, you know, they'll say, here's what I need, and then they'll actually get it to me. They've been much, I think they're 100 times better than they had been, you know, sort of thing, but doesn't mean you can't be 100 times better than that. So.
Oh, yeah. And one of the other things I know that's been tossed around, but I think it's becoming even more kind of important, is looking at our speed limits on some of the roads. For some people, they moved here and these roads were not really main roads. So they have their mailboxes down there. They're used to be able to go down without risking their lives. And now those roads are really becoming highly trafficked. And at 45, we know people don't go 45. They go 10 above because radar can't get them until they're above that. So we got people going 55. Now, if they considered lowering it to 35, we'd actually have people going 45.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I think that's a different one, and it's come up before. So
yeah,
if you mind, I'm gonna hop up. Everyone else could have two. Let's Alyssa. Do you have anything else to add?
No, not specifically. Yeah, it seems like pretty much we all kind of have the same sentiment, keeping Georgia, Milton rural, keeping it, nature oriented, things like that. So yeah.
Cool. Let's see. So then we have a minute. So that means John has the last word.
I want to concur with the roads. I'm real concerned about, the overdevelopment causing more traffic than necessary here. I mean, we've had a bunch of 4-way stops, and luckily we've alleviated a lot of those with roundabouts, which I think are phenomenal. I think people are understanding how to use a traffic circle properly, and they've really taken down the amount of traffic I've seen here on Providence Road by the Union and Birmingham Circle's phenomenal. So if we could just continue to keep in mind, stay ahead of the game when it comes to the roads and anticipating what the amount of traffic is going to be like it in the future and preparing for it before it becomes a problem, that would be phenomenal.
Great, and I think those were good. So we're going to leave in 6 seconds. I think hopefully I'll have you guys talk a little bit just to share like a snippet of what you're saying.
All right. So welcome back, everybody.
You had a good time. You missed out, guys.
All right. Well, welcome back. So we just want to take a brief debrief on what you all discussed. And so we're going to do this in a number of ways. Now, Greg, were you the scribe?
Because I was the scribe, so maybe I can queue up some of our if you want me to, I could queue up some of our residents to explain.
Let's do it that way, Greg. 'Cause you were there. Just do that. Let's do
Yeah,
that.
so that way I could say, I'm gonna go with,
Yeah.
we had Mary and Greg, can Mary, Greg, when do you guys talk about Birmingham Crossroads and like consistent enforcement of signage regulations?
Sure. Birmingham Crossroads has some really good signage ordinances because we're an overlay district. And we've noticed, we've been here for almost 2 years, that ordinance really just needs to be enforced. It's really good, very specific, but it seems like the emphasis hasn't really been on that area as much. But we think that it would really help the view shed there and kind of go along with the rural character to be able to enforce the laws that we have. Don't add anything new, just kind of enforce what we have, and that'll make it better.
Kind of summarize there, we spend a lot of money on green space to preserve our view shed here in Milton. But we can preserve a lot of the view shed in Milton just by getting rid of all these illegal signage you have by the side of the road. Just clean up what we have. This is a zero cost thing to do that we already have laws on the books for.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mary.
And Greg, he's great.
Greg?
He's a very good first name, so I'm very good.
Thing here.
Did you want me?
Thank you.
We basically all have everyone have a chance, so I can queue up the next person if you want me to do that, Daryl.
Yes. Go, take it away, Greg.
Sure. I'm gonna set people up with the T. Alyssa's next. Who's Alyssa? So Alyssa, could you talk a little bit about having more knowledge about especially private developments? How you want that's a priority, so people know, and your ideas for that.
Yeah, exactly. So because Milton is a really up and coming area and is growing very quickly, I will notice that developments that are practically not there one day are there the next. So just to have a place, like one place where you can go and see the plan for the future, all the developments. And Greg did bring up that some of them are private, so that's kind of hard to get that information. But it would just be nice to know kind of like what the future would look like for Milton.
Okay. Thank you, Alyssa. Who's next, Greg?
So we're just going one by one, and we can. So John's next, and so John, I'm just going to have you just he talked about overdevelopment and one about getting more information, but also I think he brought up about roads and kind of traffic control. So John, Alyssa also mentioned speed limits, I think, or maybe it was John, but you could talk a little bit about that, especially overdevelopment, especially as it relates to transportation.
Fantastic. Thank you, Greg. Yeah, we both, a couple of us discussed how the traffic speeds have gotten a little bit more than what they should be for some of these more narrow country roads. And we really want the city to be cognizant of, as more developed comes, we want them to be able to be prepared to handle that as far as traffic goes and with the roads. And I think that the traffic circles that have been put in have been great. People are really understanding now more about how to use a roundabout properly. So if we could continue that and make sure that these roads are keeping up with the development that occurs at the same time, we don't feel like we're catching up. And also something I didn't bring up in our small group, but I think the idea of making Milton more of a walkable city with putting in sidewalks and paths, I think that's come up quite a bit in surveys in the past. But I do feel like that's a big thing to kind of bring communities together. I always get kind of sad if I drive down a neighborhood and I see no sidewalks from house to house to house. I just think that's a great way for people to connect and really come together and get to know your neighbors. If there's a sidewalk connecting neighborhoods and paths, you can see people face to face and really have a better sense of community. So that would be a great improvement.
That's great. And I mean, also people talk about Milton. Beautiful is always one stint, like a beautiful place. That's one of the main people live here. So give people more reasons to get out.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I mean, those were some of the highlights. I mean, we could probably talk for a long time because these are great people who actually like love this city. But do you want to go on more? But I mean, actually maybe
Yes, we have time. So please, if you want to share more, please do.
I actually had a question that I don't know if you guys will know this answer, but maybe you'll know who will know this answer. But Recently, I went to the Milton Cross Country Trail, and I noticed that there was a survey, looked like they were surveying the land. And I was wondering what that meant. Are they building something on top of the Milton Cross Country Trail, or is it just maintenance or something like that?
On Fulton School's property? No.
So I believe actually the man who like owns part of UPS had bought the trail or part of the trail. So I'm actually not sure if Milton owns it or not.
I'm not aware of anything from our parks. Steve, do you know?
I can just tell you, I can tell you that we have no information on anybody looking to develop anything over there. The only thing I can tell you is that I don't know where the school district property ends and where private property begins. The trails themselves, the cross-country trails, I thought were entirely contained within school district property. But if it meanders off there at all, I haven't heard of anything. I'll keep my ear to the ground though.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Alyssa, I'll put my email address in the comment in the chat thing. If you want to shoot me an email, I can get that to the right person at City Hall.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a quick question. Is there an ordinance where new homes must be built on nothing less than 1 acre size of land?
I can answer that. It depends on the zoning.
Okay.
So most of the city of Milton is zoned within what's called AG1 zoning. And AG1 requires minimum 1 acre lots. There are other areas within the city that are higher density. They're zoned differently. You'll find that in Crabapple and Deerfield, and to a small degree up at the Birmingham Crossroads, which has a little bit more dense zoning capabilities. But that's the extent of it. Otherwise, it's mostly AG1, and AG1 has been in place for decades.
Okay. I always thought that was a unique feature and something that was kind of reassuring and nice to kind of help curb overdevelopment.
It is the AG1 zoning is something that is very strongly embraced by our city's leadership for the exact reasons that you're saying, Mr. Hobbs.
I see. And that would include the area of kind of across from 7 Acre where they're doing that huge development by the barn Publix.
So that's the crossroad, the Birmingham Crossroads, and that is, I believe, zoned MIX. So it's not AG1. So it allows for it's not really mixed, but it is a mix of different development capabilities. So there's some commercial going in there. And some, it's not 1 acre. There are 1 acre lots going in the back, but the others are, I believe, detached townhomes, more similar to what you see in Crabapple.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Any other thoughts that others would like to share?
Just one general thought about commercial development. And as we're looking at, Crabapple's having more development, and Birmingham Crossroads and probably Deerfield will have more, or just continue to need to keep up the development they have. How do we prevent the kinds of issues that Alpharetta is seeing with North Point Mall, and with Alpharetta having to put in a good bit of city money to keep some of these commercial developments going? How do we learn from what others have done so that we don't find ourselves in the same situation years down the road?
I'm going to take a stab at this. So this is not my area of expertise. Generally, what you're hoping to do is to keep up with your comprehensive planning, to keep that ahead of the development styles, to determine exactly what you want your city to be. We've seen even a shift related to COVID. We don't know if it's temporary or permanent away from office uses. And that was a shift nobody was necessarily expecting. But the best defense against that is making sure you're keeping abreast of what future development trends are looking like. We're seeing both the younger generations and people more our age are now looking for different development styles than what occurs in between, and they're looking for more, we talked about walkable cities. They're looking for more live, work, play type opportunities, where you can, not that Avalon is a good example of it, but something like that, or even Atlantic Station, not that that's appropriate for Milton, but areas where you can leave your townhome, go to work, go to a nice restaurant and come home all without touching your vehicle. That may be appropriate in some areas, maybe down as Deerfield redevelops. But what you're seeing disappear is exactly what you're saying. The malls are disappearing. The strip mall type approach to development is disappearing. But fortunately, a lot of the Milton is still quite small. So a lot of the areas down there are owned by a handful of local developers. And we're already in talks with them about what they could do to redevelop that, to make sure that going forward is viable. But going back, Ms. Cronk, to one of the most critical pieces of this is truly the comp planning, which is going on right now, because that's our 20-year look in. And this 5-year plan, which is what we're discussing right now, tucks up neatly up underneath that comp plan. Those together should keep us on the right track for development, so long as our community development team is constantly up on what's next in development standards. What ultimately demand is going to determine supply. And if you continue to supply something that there's no demand for, you end up with exactly what Alpharetta did.
Great. Thank you.
No problem. I hope I was able to address it.
Thank you.
Can you answer how these meetings have compared one to the other, and what, this is probably the smallest of the three, but what have the other two been like size-wise, and what kind of feedback have you gotten?
They have been small.
Really?
So our first one, I think we had 2 participants, and then we didn't have anybody yesterday. So, and we're a little flummoxed because Greg, the communications director who met with you in your breakout session, had a marketing plan and executed on it flawlessly. And so,
well, I think that the survey responses, we had a really good response. I mean,
that's true.
much higher. So I think it's just basically people were not. They basically chose that instead of the face-to-face. I think it's also different with COVID times. It's a little bit different. If we actually had it in City Hall, it would be a little. Yeah. But actually, Michelle could talk about this. We could talk about a little bit of the surveys that's found. So I mean, a lot of the similar themes. Though I don't think there's. I don't like in terms of overdevelopment or keeping Milton, and also traffic issues, transportation issues, balancing commercial versus residential, that kind of stuff. A lot of the same themes have come up. I mean, Michelle would know that more, but.
Yeah, I don't have to add to that, Greg, but this, as I mentioned earlier in the evening, the survey has gotten a lot of traffic, and we're glad about that, because that's going to be a good source of more input from the community.
Great.
But we are so appreciative of those of you that did come and participate in this evening.
Well, don't get discouraged, with people, working from home and having to be on Zoom calls probably 3 or 4 times, perhaps during the day. Another one to add to their list might just be too much. So
yeah. Yep. For some people, it's back to back all day long. They're in Zoom 8 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a very good point.
Mary wants to make a comment.
Yeah.
The only comment I had, I just wanted to know how long that survey will be open till, so we can kind of prod some of our other folks that we know to get on there.
We can keep it open for a bit. I'd say we could keep it open easily till mid-December.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Remember someone's Christmas present to fill out a survey, and that's the.
Earlier in the presentation, there's some mention of 150 people that you surveyed.
I think that's about how many responses we've had to the online survey so far.
It's 157 now, so that's good.
Oh, it's 55. So that was the survey, was like.
Oh no, the 55. Oh, Michelle, explain what the 55 is.
Yeah, the 55 are actual individual interviews that we did with 55 people in the community, and it was a mixture of residents, stakeholders, people from the business community. We interviewed people that serve in the community-based organizations that serve Milton residents. We talked with people that serve on the advisory boards and committees for the city. And we spoke with we spoke with all of the council members and leaders in the departments within the city. So it was a total of 55. And then, as Daryl had mentioned, we really tried to bring some diversity into the discussion. And so, we spoke to people from the disability community, from senior community, different racial and ethnic communities. It was a good process.
So how did you decide those people? I mean, I hear you talking about all these different communities, developers and all. How about the average just homeowner community? How many people, homeowners, did you talk to?
I think we had, some of the people in the list were speaking from their roles as advisory committee or board members, but they're also part of neighborhoods. And so they were speaking from that perspective as well. I would say that I would hope that we gathered a much broader demographic in the survey because we were able to hit a larger demographic. We had a limited number of interviews that we could do.
Right. Okay.
I just posted this in the chat, but I actually tried to look for the survey because I haven't filled it out yet, but it seems to be closed. Has it been past the due date or?
No, it's still open on our website. I'm actually in it right now. So if you go to our website, click on the link, it'll bring you right to the survey.
Yes. Is it Survey Monkey like /r/ a question farm?
No, Alyssa, I just posted a link in the chat.
Okay.
And I checked the site, it's up.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I actually was in there yesterday and it's still live. There's also an idea wall there too that you can just freehand, contribute an idea that you have about what you'd like to see for Milton's future.
Sarah, if you
Awesome,
do end up
thank you.
connecting, if you do end up connecting with Alyssa, could you find out where she might have caught a link from that seems to be going to the wrong spot? Thanks.
Yeah, it was like titled like a question farm like survey.
Oh no, this is regarding the whole city.
Yes, it was on your website.
Greg,
Yes,
you're
so
on
we-
mute.
You're muted.
I will, I know that's the server that was closed about the question community. So it's basically somewhere on the website. I'll make sure that it is off. It's probably in the questioning. I can guess where it is. But you're set now, Alyssa. That's a good thing.
Yes, thank you so much.
Any other thoughts, comments?
No,
Okay.
thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for taking time out of your evening to participate in this. We really do appreciate it. Well, we're going to take one more poll. We're going to give you guys one more poll question. And this one has to do with your confidence in Milton's future. So Sarah will put the poll up here, and it's a question about your level of confidence if Milton will be a better place to live 5 years from now. So 1 is least confident, 10 is most confident. So you have to pick a number. And now we have the poll results. And wow, I mean, all those numbers are on the high side. So let's talk about that for a minute. So do any of you want to comment on your poll answer and why you chose that number? Does anybody want to?
I'll do it. I actually voted in that, and it's my job to make sure we're better. So I'm very confident. So I voted 10 on that. Just full disclosure.
Thanks, Steve.
I think that I feel good that Milton is reaching out and trying to get residents to respond. I do hope that people take the opportunity, and I do hope that council and everyone else listens to what citizens do have to say. And that's a really important part. It's always, I know when in my work, it's don't ask people questions if you're not willing to go along with what the advice that they're giving you.
Yep.
So I do feel like you guys are doing that. I feel like council listens. And so I do feel that we're really going in a good direction to make Milton better.
Yeah, agreed. I'll say I put a 9 just because I think everybody's very committed to the city, and I think there's a great amount of interest and a lot of pride in the city of Milton, people who live here. My only concern is, the overdevelopment issue. I'm just concerned with as many people who want to live here. It's very appealing to see all the tax dollars that could be coming into Milton, and we could turn into, an Alpharetta or Roswell where it gets too big too fast. So as long as we're just planning ahead and just smart development, that's all I'm concerned about.
I wanted to share one idea that did come through in the interview process. It actually came through several times of people saying, one effective way that the city could think about more effectively engaging homeowners, as was mentioned before, is really working through the homeowners associations and finding ways to work through those associations to get to the average homeowner in Milton. And so that's one idea that we'll definitely be discussing when we think about how do you do a better job of engaging residents in Milton's process. Anybody else want to comment on the poll? Okay, well, I think we'll close it off here. Again, thank you all for coming. This was the last of the 3 forums, and we will keep the survey open for a while longer. So please encourage your neighbors and your friends and your colleagues, your business associates to go to the website and participate in the survey, participate on the idea wall, and we will be sharing all of that data with council when we meet with them in January. And Steve's going to take you through the process of how we're going to get to the finish line with this. So Steve, take it away.
Unbelievable. I apologize. Well, I guess I'm 3 for 3 in keeping my microphone muted. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you all for sharing your valuable time and ideas that will help us craft the City of Milton's strategic plan. The city's project team, which you saw today, will take what you've shared and incorporate it with other feedback we have received, including the community survey and ideas we've discussed from the community engagement website we set up to support our strategic planning project. And that's now on the city's website, as we mentioned. In-depth interviews with city leaders and a range of stakeholders throughout our community, a survey of our city staff, as well as what we heard tonight at tonight's forum. The team will then present the community input to Mayor Lockwood and the city council members at an all-day planning session in early January. At that session, they'll be guided through this process of using the input to develop a vision and strategic goals for the city. From there, we will work with each city department to determine the actions and initiatives required to achieve those strategic goals set by the council, as well as to determine how we will measure our activities so we can report our progress to you, our citizens. We will share a draft of that strategic plan so the public can comment on it when it comes before council for final approval. Ultimately, we expect that to be sometime in February. That said, this is only a success when the public is involved in the process, openly and honestly. That happened with our interviews, our survey, and I believe here today. So again, thank you for playing your part in making a difference in the city of Milton.
And with that, we'll wrap it up. Sarah will close the meeting. And again, thank you. We really appreciated your participation.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.